Hi, I'm Hisnara Begum, a career coach and skills trainer. Thank you for joining me on this video interview, for which I've been joined by a partner from Linklaters called Paul Lewis. Paul and I actually go back many, many years because we were actually in the same trainee intake at Linklaters way back in 2007. No, 1997. Wow, it's so long that I can't actually remember. Anyway, Paul, I'm so excited to be reunited with you. How have you been?
I have been fine. I've been fine. God, it is a long time ago. It was 97, wasn't it? I remember being in Silks, and we were on the same table at some point in Silks, the canteen in Linklaters. Yeah, it doesn't seem that long ago. But I think we are the last trainee intake that came into Linklaters in the what I still call the old building,
Correct, yes.
which is the old Barrington House building. Then we had the pleasure of moving to what became the new building, and now we're looking at another building that we'll be moving to in a few years' time. And so, yeah, I think we definitely straddle a number of Linklaters generations who's Nara.
Let's go back to slightly before you arrived at Linklaters. How did you end up in law in the first place? What motivated you to do that, especially as someone who grew up near the sort of Swansea area in Wales?
Yeah, so it's one of those ones where I'd love to have a fantastic origin story that sort of gives and imbues deep meaning for it. The reality was, I was doing English, history, economics A level. I thought it was a topic that actually blended those reasonably well. It was this sort of comp school, went work experience at the local high street solicitors, the highlight of which was going to court on something which was not myself, I'll add, but to go and watch some sort of GBH charge. And law just seemed quite a sensible thing that balanced out my different skill sets. Such as they were. So there wasn't any massively greater science to it than that, which looking at then what came later, is quite scary, I suppose, in terms of could have gone down a different route. But yeah, there was no magic thing to that. And those days, let's face it, you didn't know, I certainly didn't know big law. There was a world outside Wales, there was a world of city law. All I knew of lawyers was that sort of high street solicitor in Gorseinon. So yeah, no great origin story. It was just this seems quite interesting, and it seems to blend the things that I'm quite interested in quite well.
How did you identify what types of firms to apply for? Because as you say, there was, we didn't have access to the internet. So we were very much relying on speaking to employers that made the journey to our respective universities. And like you, my only knowledge of the sector before starting university was high street firms. Like you, I did 1 week's work experience in a local firm sitting in a sort of family department. So I didn't know that this whole side of law existed, notwithstanding the fact that, like you, I did A-level economics.
Yeah, which I loved. It was fantastic. Yeah, so word of mouth, right? I mean, I think it really was. You go to university. So I went to university outside of Wales, and then you have people who have you're doing law. People who've done it the year before who say to you, "Oh, I did a vacation scheme at this type of thing." And you go, "Oh, that's interesting. What's that sort of law firm do? Do they do criminal stuff, etc.?" It's like, no, Paul. There's this whole different world of things that aren't criminal law. And so, I sort of followed the people I trusted, whatever, respected in the year above were saying, "Oh, we did this. It's interesting. You might like this, etc." And it was that really. So it was following those the year before who I'd talked to and said, "Right, what are you doing?" And that sounds interesting. And then did that. And I think my sort of I can't remember what the buddy sponsor, whatever the right phraseology is, the year above, had done a vacation scheme at Linklaters and had said, I've been to this place called Linklaters. I think it was great. Why don't you have that as one of the places you go to? So again, it's interesting when you look at the things, those sliding door moments in life of the little things that lead you to where you are, and you go back and go, if any one of those had been slightly different, then you might not have ended up doing the thing you did.
Yeah, no, and it's important, isn't it, that you've already highlighted how talking to people around you, and I cannot stress the importance of networking and chatting to people, because you learn so much by having those conversations, or the formal phrase is known as informational interviews. Talking of information, what do you know about the legal sector now that you wish you had known about when you were, a fresh-faced undergrad?
Oh, so many things, so many things.
Oh,
I think the really key thing is, and I saw some version of this, it just really resonated, some version of this on social media a few weeks ago. And the basic theme was things you're told at law school or university, if you do well academically, then the successes of life are theirs for you. But the reality is, yes, you clearly need to do, to be a lawyer, right? You need to do pretty well academically. but just as, if not more important, about your ability to succeed in probably all areas of law, but certainly in city law, it is, you touched on it, it is things like the networking, and not networking in sort of the grubby salesy type way that people think, right? But you're a people business. You need to form connections with people. You need to think about how you market yourself, how you market your business, how you win business, how you do that. And I would say I would happily self-describe myself as an introvert. So you can work out whether that comes naturally or not. But it's a huge part of succeeding, that ability to not just be really good at the technical stuff, but to be good at that sort of the people to people type element. And when people talk about, will machines replace lawyers, etc., they won't replace actually I click with this client, or I've made sure that, so-and-so thinks of me when they want to give me a matter. So that, I think, is the one thing. And I'm not sure I even learned it in the first 2 years at Linklaters. I think it's one that gradually dawned over my associate career that, okay, if you really want to get ahead, yes, you need to be good at doing the technical stuff, but you also need to be good at this whole interpersonal connection building, network building element as well.
Yeah, I'm glad that you picked up on that, because as someone who does skills training as a living, I run lots of sessions for students and junior lawyers on the importance of networking, and more specifically, how you develop those key communication skills that allow you to connect with people in a meaningful way. And so I'm really glad that you're advocating for, students and junior lawyers to develop those skills, because I wish I had started earlier. Because unlike you, I would say I'm an extrovert, meaning that I thought I was really good at networking, and I was terrible because all I ever did was talk about myself. Which is not the way to approach relationship building. Okay, so let's talk about your career. I obviously didn't stick with it because I left Linklaters at just shy of 3 years PQE. You are now managing partner. So you've been at Link since being a trainee. I'm assuming being appointed to the top role was a career highlight, but was that more exciting than meeting or being in the same room as King Charles, should I say?
Yeah, it was a good watching of my LinkedIn feeds there.
Absolutely.
That was pretty exciting too. I mean, I don't tend to get struck by stars. I don't tend to meet many stars, but that was quite fun. And actually, it was business in the community. It was a much the thing that the business community initiative serves is really worthwhile. There's a managing partner, fantastic, right? I mean, I do all the sort of the normal honor, privilege, etc. I think it's a great firm. So certainly a huge personal career highlight. But is it the thing that I would look back on when my career at Linklaters is done, and that that's the thing I'm most proud of? No, right? I mean, it's a thing that you do. And in terms of, you touched on you sort of decided to make a different choice at year 3, and I stayed on. I think there's probably a lack of imagination there on my part, but anyway. But I think there's I've always found that I'm someone who likes challenge, and I'm curious about things. And the great thing that I've found throughout my career, and sometimes you have to look for it. It's not as if any firm lays it on a plate for you. But it's the sort of, every time I've started to get just a little bit bored with something, there's another challenge that you can throw yourself into. And often you have to be the one throwing yourself in. So, don't wait for someone to come to you and say, wouldn't it be good? It's hey, this is really interesting. Could I get involved in this? I was thinking about this. What about this, etc. Yeah. But every time throughout my career, it's been, whether it's the products that I've worked on, or the clients I've worked with, or some of the internal initiatives I've been involved in, there's something that has been a challenge that's kept me curious, kept me excited, and things have just gone on, right? You go from one thing to another thing, they tend to build up and whatever. But all of them it's just that sort of innate curiosity of, well, how does this work, and how does that fit, and can we do this better, and can we do this differently, and hey, I'm going to suggest to someone that we could do this differently, and why don't we just think bit odd, bit differently than that? And so I think that's what's kept me going throughout it, is that sort of curiosity and a drive that we can do things differently and do things better.
And how are you finding being a leader? Because we spoke just before we started recording this about my new role on my local GP surgery's patient participation group, and how it's quite challenging managing people from different generations with different communication styles and different, interests and capabilities.
Yeah, I'm not going to hold myself out as having any answers, let alone the right answers. I sort of, every day try and do something a little bit better than the previous day. But I'll give my senior partner, Ada Markomiski, she once made this phrase, and it really stayed with me, actually. And lawyers are very analytical, and sort of predisposed to sort of see the things that can go wrong. Like that's our training. That's what we're meant to be good at. So you can get people that sort of, oh, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? Why are we doing this? Whatever. And Ademar once made this point of, I've never met anyone in, let's say our firm who ever comes to work trying to do a bad job, right? You're always trying to do something better, trying to do something well. So I think that's it. Every day you come in, you try and do the job. You've got an idea of where you want to get to, and you try and do it in a decent way to get to that point. So I won't claim to have any great lessons. And the reality is, you're only ever going to be judged by other people, and there'll be lots of people listening to this saying, "Oh, Paul's not good at that," and the firm's not good at that, whatever. But every day, try and do it a little bit better.
Well, just going back to the sticking with it, did you at any point think you might try something different like me, or did you always see yourself as a private practice lawyer working towards partnership and then towards the sort of managing partner role? How did you go about thinking what you were going to do with your career?
I always had, I always thought that being a partner, so working towards partnership, that actually it was a career that would fit me. So I once did one of those psychometric tests. We get them every couple of years, and there's one I did, and the person sort of giving the feedback said, "Well, the great news is, you're a round peg in a round hole, in that actually your skill set is, well suited to exactly the thing you're doing." My family have a sort of slightly less charitable version of that, which is you're only good at one thing. It's just lucky that you found the one thing you seem to be half decent at. So anyway, I'll take the two different ones.
Yeah.
So I think there is an element of that. But I mean, what I've always said to my mentees, and I think I applied it myself, is you should have multiple different career routes mapped out in your mind. So who knows where things will take you. And so I've always said very openly to mentees, let's have a proper discussion. I'm not going to get offended if you turn around to me and say, "Gosh, maybe I don't want to be a partner at Linklaters." It's quite the contrary, right? Statistically, most people who join a big law firm will go on to do other, often very brilliant things. So let's be honest and open about that and have a conversation. And so I was saying to someone I was over the table from the other day, exactly the same thing, which was, right, have a look. If you think you might want a career in Linklaters to go to partnership, then okay, fine. Think about how it works. Think about how you get to the next stage. Think about how you work towards it. But you should always be thinking about, okay, but if that doesn't happen, what are my options? How am I, so it's probably links a bit to your training, right? How am I promoting myself that I have a personal brand? So if I go off to a client, and different areas have different clients, it's an obvious route. What type of client would I go for? How do I make sure that I'm someone interesting that the client might want to see? If I want to do it's completely different, how do I keep the connections or networks that might get me into that? How do I push myself in? So I've always had the sort of reasonably, okay, if I do this, then I want to do this, here are my building blocks, but I might want to do this, I might want to do this. And I'll have done the same as lots of, I went on secondments at clients. I love working with and for clients. Definitely gave a lot of thought to that. But I saw ultimately sort of know thyself. I knew that I would be fundamentally happier and better, and both of those things are important, not just the second one, at doing what I ended up doing. And so a lot of self-reflection around it.
Thank you for that. And you're absolutely right about having more than one plan, just in case one doesn't work out, or just in case you choose not to go down the path that you originally thought about. And you're right also that firms need to have grown-up discussions with their lawyers about career progression, and that partnership isn't necessarily always the right route to be following. Because I know when I was a lawyer, it was either you go in-house, and that's sometimes seen as a bit of a plan B, and I don't think it should be seen like that. So thank you for sharing those words of wisdoms. Let's go back to the more junior end of the market now. It's just a bit of a coincidence that it's National Apprenticeship Week on the day that we record this video. So let me ask you about the Linklaters apprenticeship schemes. It's quite new, isn't it?
Yes, and we will have our first intake coming up on this. So it's something that we've pushed heavily on over the last few months, and so myself, Ademar, so other senior leaders. And for me, I'll go back to it's been a passion project for me. I think fantastic team internally have got that off the ground for us. So Patrick McGann, anyone who goes anywhere near legal social media probably knows the name of Patrick. He's been involved in
absolutely
a number of other sort of citywide initiatives. Malcolm Horton, as sort of head of recruitment, also heavily involved in getting it off the ground and driving it. But I think social mobility has always been something that I have been really passionate about. And the apprenticeship program isn't necessarily purely for that, but I think it enables a wider access of to the legal profession. And I saw some other law firms doing it, so I'm not going to claim that we certainly weren't the first mover, but there weren't many other big law firms doing it. There was one or two, and credit to them. but I sort of looked at it, it's like, yeah, that resonates so much with, so lots of people either I haven't got the wherewithal, in the sense of financial wherewithal, to be able to go to university for 3 years, or that just don't want to do that, don't want to spend 3 years. They want to actually go in at a different level, work up, etc. And so I think it does open that broader window. So, you know, we'll start small, we'll build up. But I mean, it's something I'm really, really passionate about. I think it would just give access to a much broader range of people than we've traditionally had. So when I'll go back to, so I slightly tried to do a politician answer one of your questions earlier, in that if I think about things I am proud of, I sent a message to Patrick, I think the day that we announced it, saying, Patrick, I'm really proud of this initiative. Thank you so much for getting it off the ground. You know, I went to Patrick, a couple of us said, why are we doing this? Can we do it? Patrick made it happen. But yeah, I was so pleased, right? That personal moment of satisfaction, because I think it will be a fantastic thing for us to do. And I'll use it as a sales pitch. Patrick, Joanna Hughes are sort of, you know, together with a number of others, driving not just sort of us Linklaters doing it, but a collection of us doing it, and it becoming a, you know, a bigger thing. So again, I'd encourage and enthuse any of our peer firms looking at this to join that grouping and to push it forward.
Thank you. No, it certainly sounds like an interesting and much needed initiative or program even. Whilst we're in the subject of new entrants to the profession, what advice would you give to students or indeed junior members of the legal profession who are, you know, struggling and thinking, is this for them, or they aren't able to get their foot in the door?
And so I was going to ask, so struggling in what sense there? Is that sort of to get in, or to,
yeah,
or
to break into the profession, or feeling a bit stuck as to how to navigate a career in law, because it's so demanding, and to get in the first place, it's so competitive.
Yeah, so I think probably taking those two different angles.
Sure.
I think, I suppose the latter one is just it's keep trying, isn't it? I mean, that's the reality. It's lots of firms have got lots of different ways of reaching out to different communities, etc. Obviously, you know, many apply and it's a smaller number are taken, but I think often it is persistence. But then when you're in that, and once you get into that interview phase, I've always thought it's, what do I look for? I look for someone who's got spark. I look for someone who's got determination. I look for someone who's got curiosity. You know, most people who get through in fact, I'd say almost everyone who ever manages to get to a point where they're in a sort of interview type process with us, their academics are going to be decent, right? I mean, we don't necessarily require, you know, absolutely, you know, everyone has to have whatever, but, you know, most people who get here through different routes are going to have sort of good technical skills, good academics. But, you know, okay, then it's showing those extra personal characteristics to someone where you go, yeah, you want this, and you'll work hard, and you'll value what it will bring to you for being here. So I haven't got, there is no, I suppose, magic bullet solution on that, but I think it is that persistence. So persistence, try and get a break. We had someone who, and this is just a really good example, and I really liked it. And I think we ended up just sort of giving this person some advice more generally. But we had a Linklaters partner function last year, and one of the waiters in the place had approached one of the partners and said, "Oh, I understand you're, you know, this seems to be a law firm. I'm really interested in, you know, in being a lawyer. I think he's sort of come to the country from another country," and sort of talked about it. And the partner brought him over and said, "Right, this is Paul Lewis. He's the managing partner of the firm. He can talk to you about how to join a firm like ours." And so I talked to this person for a while, and I also put him in touch with our grad rec team and said, "Right, you know, talk to him about whether someone else, give him some advice, etc." But I really liked the fact that someone just, you know, sat there and took that one opportunity to go, "Oh, there's a bunch of lawyers around. They might be interested. I'll ask that question."
Yeah.
And again, having the courage and to do that, and it's great. Actually, respect that. We'll put a bit of effort in if we see people making that step themselves.
I mentioned to you pre-starting the recording that as a youngster, I was quite terrified of lawyers because I just didn't have any access to any. And the idea of reaching out to anyone and to ask them for careers advice sounded quite daunting. But I think you agreed with me when I said that thanks to social media, we feel, you know, there is a lot more access. Lawyers feel like they're more humans than they used to be. And you could potentially try a cheeky LinkedIn connection request. It's, who knows what that might lead to. It's as you say, it's about being brave, isn't it? Having that courage to connect with people and to ask appropriate questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And bear in mind, yeah, this is most if you have had a thriving career at a law firm, you should love what you do, right? And so then when people want to talk to you about what you do or ask for advice about how they can do something similar, it's like, when pilots are sort of asked, oh, God, I want to become a pilot. How can I become a pilot? And pilots love flying, and they want to talk about how someone can do flying. But, the more boring version is, law firm partner. But, but they will, right? And people like talking about what they do. And so, it shows spark, etc. You can find a connection in lots of different routes. Yeah, go for it. And the other really important thing, this goes back to the things you should have known or wish you'd known before. If you don't get a response, that's fine too, right? So cast the seeds into the wind in terms of people are busy, people might not pick it up, people may not be the people who respond to it, but it doesn't matter. It's not a reflection on you. Just have a go. And you see that with when clients are marketing, people fear rejection often. And the reality is, it doesn't. Why should you fear rejection? Have confidence in yourself. You have to try something. Some things will fail. Do that. Move on, etc.
Yeah. No, it is that fear of rejection, and resilience is another phrase that's often used when describing strengths and attributes that city lawyers should be displaying. And it's almost like that process of being brave, getting back on the horse if you fall off, that helps you to build that resilience, and in some ways it will make you a better lawyer. That's what I think anyway.
Wholeheartedly agree.
Let's talk about the economy. I don't think we're in recession, are we? I think we just about dodged one. Again, this is being recorded, by the way, for anyone listening, on the 10th of February. And the ONS announced this morning that though the economy is flatlining, we're not technically in recession. But the R word just gets mentioned again and again and again. And that economic outlook, that uncertainty, what do you think about that? And is it keeping you awake at night?
So no, on the latter question, and I think we clearly will pay attention to the various predictions, etc. But I think the reality, if you look at the legal industry that we operate in at Linklaters, or the top law firms, the markets that we are serving, they were less busy last year than they were the year before, which was probably one of the busiest years ever. But there was still plenty of work around, and there still is plenty of work around. So law firms and law firm business doesn't necessarily track to whether a country is or isn't in recession, or a country is or isn't doing well, because cover a range of work, it's counter-cyclical, etc., and we've diversified global and so on. So do the various economic indicators of the UK or pick other regions worry me overly? No, in and of themselves. We tend to look at and track much more. Okay, well, what is the work demand for us across different areas and so on? And again, global law firm, diversified across loads of different areas, etc. When some are doing well, others will also be doing less well, but vice versa. So it's pretty balanced. So no, I think that doesn't keep me up. Now, look, clearly it is a more uncertain time than it has been for a long time. And if I think back over the last decade, post-financial crisis, every few years has brought something globally that's been an issue, whether COVID, Brexit, regulatory change, etc. There's something that makes it difficult to manage a law firm, to manage a global business in terms of all those different bits and pieces. But no, it doesn't. I think law firms have tended to navigate it pretty well. We sell a product that people want to buy, and people still want to buy that. But clearly we have to keep a careful eye on the economic environment and make sure that we're being sort of sensible and prudent around it. It's not, a year and a half ago, I don't think we were particularly subscribing to this, but in the industry, there was definitely this sort of, people hiring a lot, people sort of growing quite fast, and that's definitely tailed off a bit. I think people are just back to a slightly more consistent, prudent setup at the moment.
Yeah, and it definitely feels different, doesn't it, than the financial crisis, when we really did fear economic Armageddon. This is a different sort of vibe I'm seeing.
Yeah, absolutely, and that was, so I still got sort of the newspapers of those days in September, etc. That day, that was when the world was sort of pivoting, and you just didn't know what was going to happen in the financial services industry and how that affects everything else. Yeah, I think that over the last few years, it's just been different challenges. It's been a combination of different challenges where yesterday doesn't look like today, won't look like tomorrow. So it's trying to be nimble, trying to address them. But I came into this role in July 21. We then had, and you have sort of best laid plans, etc. Then we had Russia last year. That wasn't on and then we had to respond to that. Previous 2 years I was heading up finance here. We had COVID. So every time you've got something new that you're having to navigate.
Sure. And what about opportunities? I know that you've also previously been co-head of innovation, which doesn't surprise me given the reference to curiosity or being curious being mentioned a few times. What role is tech playing in the way law firms deliver services to their clients, and how much should aspiring lawyers know about all of this stuff?
So it is playing. It's playing an evolving role, and I think it's not fundamentally at the moment transforming the landscape. And come back to ChatGPT and similar things at the moment. So it's augmenting what lawyers do, both internally and externally. But people get used to those changes quite quickly, and so is at the moment tech promoting radical change in the law firm industry? No. Is it enabling us to do what we do better? Yes. And then you'll definitely get this analogy. You and I would have sat down as trainees with our ruler, with 2 documents, with a red pen, doing manual black lines of documents that would take us 2 hours to do a document.
The joys of blacklining, yeah.
Yeah, manual blacklining. I mean, I describe that to people now and they're horrified. Or even, I don't know if you ever had the joy of the 3 in the morning in the fax room as you're putting your 200-page fax in the fax room.
Oh my God. And then just sitting around waiting for the print room to have the documents ready so that you can then get into a taxi and deliver documents to a partner's house. The only exciting bit about that was seeing how big the partner's house was. But technology has transformed the way we work for the better in most instances.
Yeah, exactly. But in some ways, it's sort of the someone wants to use an analogy of at one point in the 1890s or something, I can't remember, it's like sort of the deposit banks in the US, suddenly had lighting, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, the banks have lighting, and then the year after it's like, well, of course they have lighting, that's what everyone has. So some of the tech it's insidious, and it just changes things in that way that you don't see as a radical change. But if you stop and look back over 5 years, you go, gosh, yeah, we've done things differently. So I don't think that is necessarily driving a radical change. Now, we are doing more. So I'll use one example we've been doing. So we have a sort of team internally in Dakota in Create IQ, essentially designing and selling technology products or partnering on technology products and delivering those to clients. So you're selling a tech product, software as a service type product, and we've had a number of lawyers who've moved over to that initiative. But at the moment it is a small part of what we do. It sits alongside what we do, so the reason we do it is not because we want to separately become a legal tech company. It's because it's a piece that adds to our core offering. It's when we go to clients, we can say we can do this legal side, we can add this tech solution that has this legal aspect to the legal side as well. So it's a more rounded offering. So I always try and keep in mind that clarity of, you need to know what you want to be. We are a top law firm working on the most complex matters. So any legal tech we give or deploy or offer to our clients needs to help in terms of the delivery of that. We're not going to be sort of just a separate legal tech provider. So I think it's an interesting, I think it's a very, very interesting space. I think it always seems to be in that old adage, would be one of the American tech companies. What was it? You always overestimate the change that will happen in the next 5 years and underestimate the change that will happen in the next 10 years. So I think that has quite a large element of truth to it. ChatGPT is really interesting. I mean, I've had ChatGPT. I think there was someone on I just today draft me a sale and purchase agreement, and it gave me a reasonably good sale and purchase agreement.
Really?
So
oh my God!
Reasonably good. Not one you want to rely on. But again, it does show you that is, that was, I think, a bit of a game changer in terms of, okay, this shows you what might be feasible at some point. I wouldn't recommend, I'll hasten to add, for insurance purposes, if nothing else, using a ChatGPT generated sale and purchase agreement.
I'm going to have a look. I'm really curious now as to what that looks like. Talking of innovation and technology and the future of the legal profession, when we talk to students about the skills that law firms really value in their future trainees and recruits, whether that's apprentices as well, we think of people skills, time management, organization, etc. What further skills do you think lawyers now need to display to make them fit for practice in the 21st century?
I think all the ones you mentioned are still the critical skills, and so there are things that can help around that. So, and again, I was head of innovation co-head of innovation for what, 5 or 6 years. So we've been through a lot of this. We spent some time as fun, really, helping train people on becoming coders. That's a classic thing. Every law firm for a couple of years sort of decided that lawyers should be coders. And the reality is, it was fun. That's probably the most important thing. B, it was interesting just to be able to sort of think in that way, because someone I know once said, lawyers are like a lost tribe of computer programmers, because you have to think in that sort of logical way, but you sort of write in a different way. So I think so some of that is interesting, but the probably step back one more, which is it's the ability to see what is possible. It's the ability to go, oh, okay, I know we have this challenge on this legal project. I think we can solve that challenge by the ability to deliver something. You don't need to be the one who does deliver something. You just need to be the one who can see and say, oh, someone could do that for me. So the client a few months ago was talking about that we had some analysis to do, I think, on a big spreadsheet. And the client was must have been an accountant by training, comes from that background. He was saying to me, why don't you just do sort of a VBA macro in Excel? You can do that within 2 minutes. And I've got a finance degree, right? So I'm like, yeah, I could do that. And no one really wants the managing partner of Linklaters writing you VBA macros, but I've got a background that goes, yeah, okay, I can look at that. But probably much more important is the ability for someone to go, gosh, if there's this thing called a VBA macro, where surely someone must be able to program something that would do this analysis in 5 minutes. So I think it's that sort of be wide, and you don't have to be too deep on everything. Certainly, it's understand legal tech, understand what products are out there, understand just some of the basic tools. Lawyers are really good at Word, they're not very good at Excel. Actually, I'm really good at Excel because I've got a finance degree. It's helped me hugely in my career. Actually, my business manager would tell me I'm not very good at Excel because he I'm very amateur spreadsheets, but I'm generally a lot better than most lawyers. So I don't think people look for that silver bullet answer of go and learn how to do blockchain, or go and learn how to do smart contracts, etc. So often it's just a greater awareness of everything, and some of the core skills just being a bit broader and a bit better across those. It's a boring answer, but I think it's a true answer.
Yeah, the lesson I've learned is you don't necessarily need to know the answer. You need to know how to go and find it.
Yeah. And the person who can give it to you. Yeah,
absolutely, exactly. Because it doesn't necessarily have to be your colleague along the corridor who's also a lawyer. It can be another person within the business.
Yeah, exactly. And lawyers, I think one of the bad lawyer traits is we all tend to think we can do everything. So so you have to sort of go, there's someone else who is much better at Excel than me, and maybe he or she should do it themselves rather than have to fix the managing partner's rather shoddy Excel.
The only reason I'm laughing is because I just don't think that trait ever leaves you, because I still believe that. And sometimes I do just need to have the confidence to walk away and say, no, there's someone much better qualified to do that. And I'm conscious that we're out of time. So I was going to just wrap up by getting you to share one final word of wisdom or phrase or sentence. How would you like to sort of sum up your career, and what advice can you give to anyone watching this who wants to follow in your footsteps?
God, okay, that's on the spot for us. Of one, that's a challenge, isn't it? What one pithy sentence summarizes up an entire philosophy? Be hungry, keep trying. I think you have to want it. Be hungry, be curious, keep trying. Things will come.
I love that. I think you do. If you want to be a lawyer, you do really need to want it. And I say to a lot of career coaching clients, how badly do you want it? Because in certain instances, you might need to make compromises.
Yeah. I mean, that's it's choices, and it doesn't. Someone said to me the other day, it's not meant to be an easy job. It's. And you told me I can't do sales on Linklaters. I won't do sales on Linklaters. But when you're doing the types of deals that big law firms do, right? They're complex, they're exciting, they're challenging, they're time pressured hugely. But a partner in another firm was describing it as, you get to do those because you've learnt your craft. I think this partner used a really good analogy. He said that when Roger Federer steps on the court, everyone sees the coiffed Roger Federer who just looks consummate and immediately sort of wins the game. But he said, the reason why he wins the game is because he's in Cincinnati in the autumn when it's cold, practicing on his own, away from his family, willing to sort of put the effort in, willing to hone his craft so he can be the very top. And I think that there is a reality to that, which is to get to the sort of where you might want to get to, you have to put that effort in to become the thing that you see, and you go, God, it seems so effortless.
Yeah, agreed. That's a fantastic way to end the interview. Paul, it's been wonderful catching up with you. Let's do it again in 20 years' time, shall we?
But I hopefully won't still be managing partner of Linklaters. It's been lovely. Thanks very much.
Brilliant. Thank you.